Hello and good day everyone. This is our assignment 1 literature review for our critical writing and research course. To begin with, let's go through the abstract of this literature review. Based on our years of teaching experience, we notice that grammatical errors are quite common among ESL learners in Malaysia. Hence, this literature review examines common grammatical errors in the writing of Malaysian ESL students and evaluates the role of technology-based learning tools in addressing these challenges. Drawing from recent studies, in applied linguistics and language education, the review identifies persistent grammar-related issues such as subject-verb agreement, tense, consistency, article usage, and prepositions, which continue to hinder ESL learners' writing proficiency. This review also explores how digital tools, including grammar checkers, interactive writing platforms, and mobile learning applications, have been implemented among schools in Malaysia. While research shows promising outcomes in learner engagement and error reduction, challenges remain in terms of tool accessibility, teacher training, and integration into curriculum frameworks. This review highlights the insights of a balanced pedagogical approach that combines traditional grammar instruction with adaptive technology to foster more effective writing skill development among Malaysian ESL learners.
To introduce this topic, we know that English is treated as the second language in Malaysia. Hence, there is an evident gaps on the literacy and proficiency of English language among Malaysian students. And this is proposed by Kumawan and Krish in 2021. And adding to that, there's some concerning issues on students' difficulties to construct compound and complex sentences, or even simple sentences in some geographical areas. And this is notioned by Mothi and Aziz in 2020. Now, in terms of teaching strategies, of course, there is a prolific amount on the research of technology-based learning in assisting ESL proficiency. However, despite this large volume of research, there is still a lack of discussion on the integration of principles underlies this notion of teaching strategies, and that is why, despite the numbers of teaching strategies being researched on, there are still inefficiency to cater on students' weaknesses. And we know that an effective language acquisition thirst for students' engagement in any kind of settings. Hence, due to these issues that we have gathered on examining students' proficiency and students' grammatical errors in writing skills, we reviews on the teaching strategies that are technology based that caters to these type of weaknesses whilst underlying and whilst weighing on the underlying principles, as well as how it ignites students' engagement in the teaching of writing classes.
Malaysian ESL students often struggle with tenses and subject-verb agreement, which is SVA. These grammar issues are connected to low classroom engagement. That being said, using technology can help students better understand tenses and SVA. At the same time, it also improves writing skills and student participation. This is because technology creates a more interactive learning environment for the students. And here is a simple outline for data collection to ensure reliable findings. By choosing the right methodology, we can accurately identify the challenges students face, especially with grammatical errors in their writing.
As you can see, the three constructs in our literature review are grammatical errors, strategies to teach writing using technology, as well as students' engagement.
As mentioned earlier, students often make grammar mistakes, especially with SVA and tenses. These mistakes reduce clarity and confidence in their writing. Many students also show low interest in learning to write. Technology can make writing lessons more interactive and engaging. It helps students to participate actively in the writing process. Also, using technology is key to improving engagement in writing essays. Writing is very difficult for ESL learners. They must learn grammar, sentence structure, and vocabulary all at once. This makes writing more complex for them. Because of this, they need special support to improve their writing skills in English. Based on the recent study stated here, writing remains to be the most challenging skills for the ESL learners, even when they are already in the secondary school, despite learning the language at a very young age. This is why choosing writing produced by the students can reveal their strengths and weaknesses in their language learning process. Recognizing the need for better teaching methods in English classroom, error analysis can help address low student motivation through interactive approaches. Current practices, as stated over here, miss the complexities of a changing society, particularly in Malaysian secondary classroom, where students face challenges with English. By implementing error analysis, we can improve teaching strategies, support students, and increase their motivation to engage with the language. To simplify the current trend of English learning in Malaysia, writing remains as one of the most challenging skills for second language learners, particularly in Malaysian secondary school. Effective writing requires complex composition skills beyond mere transcription and often highlights students' linguistic strengths and weaknesses. Despite that, existing pedagogical practices may not adequately address the diverse educational context and evolving societal demands. Integrating error analysis allows educators to refine their teaching approaches to better support students and foster motivation through more interactive and engaging methods. Integrating error analysis with corpus analysis offers educators valuable insights into students' language learning challenges, enabling pedagogical improvements that enhance student engagement and support more effective learning outcomes in ESL classrooms. What about writing skills among students? Creative writing allows students to express emotions and ideas freely. Narrative writing, on the other hand, requires structure and clear sequencing. Corpus and error analysis provide insights into language learning. Understanding different writing styles helps support ESL students efficiently. To simplify, creative and narrative writing engage learners differently. Creative writing encourages the exploration of emotion and abstract ideas. On the other hand, narrative writing demands structured language and coherent sequencing. Analyzing learners' written or spoken errors through tools like corpus analysis and error analysis provides valuable insights into cognitive processes of language acquisition and supports more effective language pedagogy. Now let's look at grammatical errors. Both Malaysian and non-Malaysian ESL learners struggle with simple past tense. Misinformation and omission are common errors, and this is stated by Fanny et al. 2022. Malaysian secondary students often face issues with subject-verb agreement and unnecessary word blends. These errors are often influenced by students' first language and also structural language differences. Mastering tense usage and subject-verb agreement remains a key challenge for students. In short, recognizing these patterns helps in providing better supports to learners. Clearly, these insights are useful when looking at the specific errors ESL learners make. Let's take a look at the grammatical errors committed by ESL learners. Grammar-related errors are common among both Malaysians and non-Malaysian ESL learners, as mentioned earlier, particularly in areas such as subject-verb agreement, SVA, tense usage, especially the simple past tense, unnecessary word blends. These errors are often influenced by learners' first language and the structural differences between languages. For Malaysian secondary school students, SVA and tense remain the most persistent grammatical challenges.
Now, let's look at the underlying principles on the notions of technology-based teaching strategy. The first notion is on interactionism second language acquisition theory that was introduced by Michael Long in 1980, and this emphasized on social interactions and spectrums of communication that are pertinent elements of language learning itself. Now, the process of language acquisition is done by interacting with others, constructing meanings, and giving feedbacks, whether it is done verbally or non-verbal format. The second notion is on framework rational analysis mobile education, or better known as FRAME, that was introduced by Koo in 2006. This framework was developed to understand the advantages and difficulties of mobile education. It has become the body of reference to design learning tools, materials, and pedagogy of mobile education, or in this term we called as technology-based teaching strategy. Now, the third and fourth notion on constructivism and collaborative learning was synthesized together because it alarms on language learning process rather than the pedagogical outline. Collaborative learning has worked as a medium of reference between learners, which means that learners has become the reference of one another. And we synthesize it together because it was knitted and intertwined when discussed thoroughly in these articles. Now let's look at the first literature where it uses weblog as the digital tool to enhance ESL students' writing skills, and this involved 9 Form 2 students with varying proficiency. From the findings, it concurs that weblogs has become a platform for learners' flexibility because due to the nature of weblogs where audiences are given the authority to comment on the written posts, and students as well hold the authority to reconstruct or alter their posts to correct their own grammatical accuracy. And not only that, weblogs has become a peer guide of reference, which means that a practice of advanced vocabulary from one student will become the reference for other students as well to use the same vocabulary in their written post in the future. Now, according to Coffin in 2020, weblogs offers a unique environment because it becomes a landscape on variations of ideas, because different students have different learning styles or writing styles to convey their message. Then this is why it allows students and practices students detailed observation on language detail and idea sharing. Language detail in these terms can specifically means on grammatical structures as well as the sentence structures itself. Now let's look at the proportions of argument done by Advita and Wayuni in 2021, where they argue that writing structures and demand vary according to its subjects and tasks. For example, from narrative writing to descriptive writing, it demands different type of audiences, different writing styles, and different format. However, weblogs conceal these components because it assists in understanding writing standards and audience's interpretation of the task itself. Secondly, is on interactions. We go back to the notion of interactionism, second language acquisition theory by Michael Long in 1980, where the constant interactions motivate students' language learning position. Remember, language learning acquisition focuses more on language learning process rather than pedagogical outline itself. Now, strengths and limitation. For every article, there are strengths and there are limitations. The strength of this article is on the action research or the empirical study done to expose students with the learning styles with the components of weblogs itself. But however, for the limitation, it only involves small scale samples that is being tested to justify a category. The samples being used here are only 9 Form 2 students from Sabah. So it is a very small scale, minimal scale to justify a category. Now let's review on the second article. We're using Google Classroom as a digital tool to enhance ESL students' writing skill. This study involves 55 Form 4 students from 2 different settings. The first group is from normal schools and the second group will be from a cluster school. From this finding, we found that Google Classroom optimized students' understanding because after weeks of enforcement, students are able to improve mastery in idea generation, refinement of grammatical errors, as well as enhancement of linguistic repertoire, which means their vocabulary, tone of writing, and styles of writing. We found that it is inferred that the time of discussion will highly and hugely interrupt or influence their writing clarity and accuracy because there are some weeks where students were unable to commit to the time of discussion, hence it influences negatively on their writing completion. According to Ngaraini et al. In 2020, group discussions motivate proper usage of grammar and vocabulary features because students, due to the constant interactions between students, they were aware and they were conscious of their writing as well as their errors. Because of this, it allows students to reduce the risk of errors because of the constant consciousness of interactions between one another. In general lens of learners' perceptions on the usage of technology-based teaching strategy to enhance ESL writing skills, it says that online learning is beneficial due to the time flexibility and more fostering motivation that is seldomly offered in traditional classroom because the writing tasks are not only constrained or tied to the physical classroom itself. Learners are able to interact with others online through online learning. Now, however, there are still some similarities between traditional classroom and online learning classroom because of the varying levels of proficiency. It offers collaborative learning that fosters idea generation. Remember in weblogs where we say that weblogs has become the body of reference for other students, it is similar to Google Classroom as well. From Jasmine Zakaria in 2019 proposed that mobile learning platforms ignites learners' writing skills, provided that we have the appropriate stimulations to encourage students in the process of learning writing skills, as enforced in our notion earlier, where language learning process is rather essential than the pedagogical outline itself.
Well, based on this article, it is stated that the use of ICT tools fosters students' motivation and engagement in writing activities. There is this one theory by Edward L. Deci and Richard M. Ryan proposed by them in the year of 1985, which is self-determination theory. This theory is interesting because it is theorized that when the psychological needs of students are fulfilled, there will be a positive correlation with autonomous motivation, and as a result, this autonomous motivation is expected to increase enjoyment and perceived value, along with reduced feelings of pressure. It is believed that students who feel engaged in the lesson itself are more likely to produce better result, especially in writing. I quote Dornier in 2009, motivated learners are more likely to engage in meaningful writing tasks and demonstrate persistence in learning. Also mentioned by Seve Bilon and Croman in 2019, ICT tools such as blogs, digital storytelling platforms, and collaborative writing apps have been shown to create more interactive and personalized learning environments. Also, two elements that are evident in this article is classroom dynamics and students' behavior, as well as motivation and autonomy. As for classroom dynamics and students' behavior, It can be seen that students generally show greater interest and enthusiasm when ICT is incorporated into the classroom, which result in higher levels of participation and increased confidence, which is one of the key findings in this research. Also, as for motivation and autonomy, incorporating of ICT tools like videos and interactive quizzes into lesson enhances the learning experience, making it more engaging and enjoyable for students.
Now, concluding from the 5 articles being reviewed, the persistent and consistent writing challenges between ESL students on writing skills are its tenses, subject-verb agreement, as well as vocabulary L1 interference. In terms of teaching strategies, there are numbers of evidence on the usage of technology-based learning tools that enhances students' writing skills. And because of that, we chose these 3 constructs where the teaching strategies, technology-based teaching strategies being used caters students' weaknesses in terms of writing skills, and it also weighs on students' active participation and engagement in classroom. That is all from our group. Thank you.